Hello everyone and welcome back to Sendik's Weather channel for an afternoon video. Or evening, depending on when you're watching this. Or tomorrow, you never know, you might be a late bloomer and watching this video. But yeah, we're back for another video looking at the latest developments from the model runs. Also, don't forget to pick up your Send It merch. People keep buying them. Cheers everyone for buying them. But you know, the stock's limited, but there's still a few bits left. Links in description, and I'll put a picture on screen with everything on offer, including the deals which are still out there. But yeah, we're going to be looking at the latest today from the models to see what they are showing, including a pretty epic GFS 6Z run, were it to come off. We'll also have a look at later on in the video at the UKV for the next day to see what it's showing for the conditions tomorrow and for the rest of today, of course, when I'm recording this. Now, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you really are enjoying the content. I've seen a reduction recently. Let's see if we can bump up them likes. Let's go for like 5,000 likes, you know, not too bad of a goal. We are very close to 2.6k subs already. I know, I can't believe it. We're about 8 subscribers away, so consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. So at the moment we'll look at the GFS 6Z first. It's pretty epic. High pressure is centred to the east of the UK, and lower pressure is kind of out to the west, moving in from off the Atlantic. It's a pretty mild southwesterly flow. You can see pretty warm air aloft above the UK and just to the east of the UK, keeping things mostly mild. Now, as you can see, as we go through this run, higher pressure begins to migrate towards, that's Andy, I'm not that excited, towards Greenland, and an area of low pressure gets stuck out to the west as a cut-off low. That might bring some unsettled conditions to the Republic of Ireland and possibly Northern Ireland, but you can see a cut-off low out to the west of the UK through the early part of next week. Higher pressure to the east, winds in from a southerly or southwesterly direction, so pretty mild. That feature remains until around about 8 days away, when you can see higher pressure begins to strengthen through the UK up towards Greenland, a proper blocking area of high pressure. Areas of low pressure getting shoved out to the west of the UK, so they're not properly moving in. High pressure builds out in the Atlantic up towards Greenland, and you can see the cold air digging in. It's originating quite far northwards as well, as you can see with that. It's originating from the Arctic. Areas of low pressure sliding through the south of the UK, and you can see colder air digging in. And this is a big snowmaker, even for the middle of November. But it's quite a big snowmaker for central parts of England into parts of Wales, with that low pressure over the south of the UK, so probably some cold rain in the south, but some cold northeasterly winds around that, with a big block in the Atlantic up towards Greenland. That is a proper epic setup, even for middle of November. Low pressure through the south, and winds in from a northeasterly direction. Pretty cold and very wintry there. We'll have a look at the precipitation charts just for fun in a little bit after we've looked at this run. But you can see as that clears through, the intensity of the cold air shoves that low pressure southwards into France and into parts of the North Atlantic as well. Shoves that low pressure southwards, and we continue to bring in some pretty cold northerly winds. Now, the south does hang on to some slightly milder air because, as you can see, the colder air is sinking into central northern Britain, but around that low pressure, we are seeing some milder southeasterly winds into the southeast corner. But of course, details aren't really that relevant because it is a little bit away, isn't it? There's a lot of uncertainty, but maybe things are starting to shape up well. You can see high pressure then ridges through the country briefly, so maybe turning things drier again, so less wintry, but frosty, definitely some frosty overnight, some harsh overnight frosts are possible. But you can see that high pressure re-strengthening back up towards Greenland, a big Atlantic ridge going up towards Greenland, low pressure to the south over Spain and Spain and western France, and winds are in from an easterly direction, so definitely feeling quite chilly. As you can see, Eastern Europe looks quite cold, and we're actually bringing in some of that cold air with that low pressure pushing back northwards on this run. But with the height so strong to the northwest, you'd expect pretty cold air. To be fair, before the high pressure again topples over into the north of the UK, so still pretty cold by the end of the run. Now, of course, that is a pretty epic run, but how well is it supported? Well, we'll have a look. So if we move over to the weather outlook and have a look at the GFS run, we'll go to here, so about 168 hours. Looking at the 12th of November, you can see that we are pretty mild still, with like a southwesterly flow, southeasterly flow. But you can see by the 14th, the cold front, which is represented by the pinks, which is the snow, is beginning to sink southwards, indicating the flip to colder air. big snow event for the north as that clears through the country. We've got that area of low pressure moving up from the southwest, and that's bringing a snow event to central England, the Midlands, and parts of Wales as well. Obviously, a lot of rain mixed in there because you've got to consider the time of year that we're talking about here on the 16th of November, but still pretty cold. Plenty of snow potential there. Probably a lot of sleety rain to lower levels, but especially of the higher grounds, such as the Pennines, the Peaks, Derbyshire, they could see some quite big falls there, to be fair with that. Now, of course, it does clear away and turn drier as higher pressure moves back in, but still there'll be a bit of snow potential. You can see little bits of rain, sleet and snow moving in. But of course, like I said before, it is definitely one run to watch, but it could play out. You never know. It might play out. One thing I will say is that the confidence is growing in some respects for a cold spell, but in other respects, it's all over the place, and you'll see that from the ensembles in a minute. Moving on to the GM run, high pressure out to the east, low pressure out to the west. Again, winds in from a west-southwesterly direction, most unsettled in the north and the west. But you can see that higher pressure is still stuck out towards Greenland, but with this run, we actually still see heights quite strong to the east and southeast. The low in the Atlantic is much more developed than the GFS was, so we continue to bring in a southwesterly wind, even with the blocking, which eventually does weaken. And we do go slightly cooler at the end with a northwesterly flow, but you can see it's pretty mild overall. It's totally different to that GFS run, but you can see overall higher pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, winds in from a westerly direction is the trend there, the pest from the west. Moving on finally to the ECMWF, again low pressure out to the west, high pressure to the east, winds in from a southerly southwesterly direction, high pressure building out in the Atlantic up towards Greenland. And you can see that with this ECM run, by day 10, higher pressure is beginning to turn into an Atlantic ridge. We've got high pressure ridging out in the Atlantic, going up towards Greenland and pulling down a colder northerly wind. Again, origins of the area from the Arctic, but probably mostly dry with that, but you can see that cold air beginning to slip southwards through the UK. So again, looking pretty cold, maybe even a little bit wintry in the north and the east. By the end of the run, we're still in a pretty chilly east-northeasterly wind with the -5 line through the country, basically meaning it's quite cold. Daytime temperatures probably not getting much above 5 or 6 degrees at most there, and looking pretty chilly there. You can see overnight temperatures dropping towards freezing. Daytime temperatures only reaching 2 or 3. There might even be a little bit of winteriness around the northern and eastern counties with that. So definitely one to watch. There's a lot of uncertainty on this, and the runs are constantly flip-flopping. If we have a look though at the ensembles, we'll have a look at Barnsley today. You can see that for the next 7 days, this is the general trend for much of the UK. Definitely a warming trend has been picked up for around a week's time. The 13th of November, another warming spike showing up on the GFS ensembles anyway. The other ones don't show this increase as much, this increase in upper air temperatures as much, 850 metres above sea level, 1500 metres above sea level I should say, and but you can see generally mild over the next few days. Bit unsettled at times for central Britain, but nothing too ridiculous, just a few rain spikes showing up, maybe a few showers. But then into the second half of the month, from the 15th onwards, definite cooling trend is beginning to appear within the GFS ensembles, but you can still see some mild outliers, and that is where high pressure is stuck out to the east of the UK and lower pressures to the west with that big trough, that cut-off low, and that's bringing up a southerly wind. So kind of playing havoc with the models at the moment. But if they're to be ironed out, then it does look pretty cold. You can see the 30-year average, or the ensemble mean, is dropping below the 30-year average, and there are some quite cold runs in there. Some even getting down to like -8, -10. If you have a look at the snow charts for Barnes, this is a funny laugh. You can see there's a couple of them showing up, but of course you wouldn't expect too much at this range. You can see there a couple of them popping up at the end of the run, but really not too much going on. You've got to consider what we're looking at. But if you go further northwards to Aviemore, which is in northern Scotland, quite a highland area, near to you, James, your shed. But you can see generally, there's a couple more snow spikes as you'd expect, especially in that medium to longer range, suggesting possibly a change to more unsettled conditions. Well, actually, so to colder conditions, I should say. Now, quickly moving over to look at the NAO forecast. General terms, if it's positive, it means that we're in more likely to be in an Atlantic-driven flow, so low pressure to the south, high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, winds in from a westerly direction. If you do see a negative NEO, that indicates an increased chance of blocking developing towards Greenland. Doesn't always guarantee cold, but definitely increases your chances. And as you can see, if we look at the rest of the month, a lot of uncertainty, especially mid-month. But you can see at the moment that we are below average with the NEO, negative NEO phase we're in, which is why we've got high pressure to the west of the UK. But you can see into that longer term, that mid-month, which is the big uncertainty point, and look much more than usual, I must say. And these models have been terrible this year, but much more of uncertainty this year than there has before, I'd say, for November. But my mid-month onwards, big split between the positive runs and the negative runs. Obviously, there's quite a few strongly negative runs. If they came off, that would indicate persistent northern blocking, which would be kind of similar to that GFS run we saw. But you can see that mean does not rise above the 30-year, does not rise above the zero line, indicating that we've looked to remain in at least a weekly negative phase until at least around the 18th of the month. So definitely one to watch. Definitely one to watch on that. Finally, flipping back to the UKV to see what the weather's like for today, rest of today and tomorrow. You can see it's a mostly dry day, besides a few showers moving into the east and in parts of Lincolnshire and into the northwest through lunchtime hours. But you can see through tonight, thick cloud developing with a few patchy showers around, particularly in the northwest of the UK. Just to the south of the central belt of Scotland, and maybe a few showers grazing the western parts of the Republic of Ireland. You can see there's some more rain moving up from the southwest through Friday, courtesy of a weather front moving in. There's a few showers in front of that for central Britain, including the Midlands, parts of the east and into parts of the east and the southeast as well. And they're clearing through, bringing in some patchy rain showers. That rain might be quite persistent over the Republic and Northern Ireland as well. Looks quite heavy there. In bursts, maybe 20 millimetres an hour maximums over parts such as Belfast. And then obviously we'll not look any further, but definitely drying out through Saturday, but by Sunday definitely turning a little bit more unsettled and changeable, and slightly cooler, but still generally above average. So all to play for the middle to long term, especially for the second half of the month. But GFS run was some eye candy for you like me in the central belt of England, central southern England, the Midlands, and parts of Wales. But of course, probably unlikely to come off. But you never know. You never know. Do still think last 10 days of November are a period of interest, but maybe this cooler, colder interlude, block cold, maybe even snow interlude may arrive a little bit earlier than I expected. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.